to the 1,000 Nights and 1 Night. Now, when it was the 110th night, she said, it hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when Taj Al-Muluk Karan, son of Suleiman Shah, became perfect in writing craft and excelled all those of his time, his excessive beauty when he fared abroad on any occasion caused all who saw him to be ravished, and to make him the subject of verse, and even pious men were seduced by his brilliant loveliness. Quoth the poet of him, I clipped his form and waxed drunk from his scent, fair branch to whom Zephyr gave nutriment, nor drunken as one who drinks wine, but drunk with night draught his lips of the honey-dew lent. All beauty is shown in the all of him, hence all human hearts he in hand hath hent. My mind, by Allah, I shall ne'er unmind his love while I wear life's chains till spent. If I live in his love, I'll live. If I die, for pine and longing, oh blessed I'll cry. When he reached the 18th year of his age, tender down sprouted on his side face fresh with youth, from a mole upon his rosy cheek, and a second beauty mark, like a grain of ambergris, adorned the other. And he won the wits and eyes of every wit he took and looked at, even as saith the poet. He is Caliph of beauty and Yusuf's Loo, and all lovers fear when they sight his grace. Pause and gaze with me on his cheek, though till sight the Caliphate's banner of sable hue. And as saith another, thy sight hath ne'er seen a favor sight of all things men can in the world espy, than your brown mole that studs his bonny cheek, of rosy red beneath that jet black eye. And as saith another, I marvel seeing yon mole that serves his cheek bright flame, yet burneth not in fire, albeit infidel. I wonder eke to see the apostolic glance, miracle working, though it work by magic spell. How fresh and bright the down that decks his cheek, and yet bursten gallbladders feed when e'en as waters well. And as saith another, I marvel hearing people questioning of the fount of life, and in what land 'tis found. I see it sprung from lips of dainty fawn, sweet rosy mouth with green mustached down, and wondrous wonder 'tis when Moses viewed that fount he rested not from weary round. Now, having developed such beauty, when he came to a man's estate, his loveliness increased, and it won for him many comrades and intimates, while every one who drew near to him wished that Taj Al-Muluk Karan might become sultan after his father's death, and that he himself might be one of his emirs. Then took he passionately to chasing and hunting, while he would hardly leave for a single hour. His father, King Suleiman Shah, would have forbidden him the pursuit, fearing for him the perils of waste and the wild beasts, but he paid no heed to his warning voice. And it so chanced that once upon a time he said to his attendants, Take ye 10 days' food and forage, and when they obeyed his bidding, he set out with his suite for sport and to sport. They rode on into the desert, and ceased not for riding 4 days, till they came to a place where the ground was green, and they saw in its wild beasts grazing, and trees with ripe fruit growing, and springs flowing. Quoth Taj Al-Muluk to his followers, Set up the tents here, and peg them in a wide ring, and let our trysting place be at the mouth of the fence in such a spot. So they obeyed his words, and staked out a wide circle with toils, and they gathered together a mighty matter of all kinds of wild beasts and gazelles, which cried out for fear of the men, and threw themselves for affright in the face of the horses. Then they loosed unto them the hounds and the lynxes and the hawks, and they shot the quarry down with shafts, which pierced their vitals. And by the time they came to the further end of the netting, they had taken a great number of the wild beasts, and the rest fled. Then Taj al-Muluk dismounted by the water's side, and bade the game be brought before himself, and divided it, after he had set apart the best of the beasts for his father, King Suleiman Shah, and dispatched the game to him, and some he distributed among the officers of his court. He passed the night in that place, and when morning dawned, there came up a caravan of merchants conveying negro slaves and white servants, and halted by the water of the green ground. When Taj Al-Muluk saw them, he said to one of his companions, "Bring me news of yonder men, and question them why they have halted in this place." So the messenger went up to them and addressed them. "Tell me who ye be, and answer without delay." Replied they, "We are merchants and have halted to rest, for that next station is distant, and we abide here because we have confidence in King Suleiman Shah and his son Taj Al-Muluk, and we know that all who alight in his dominions are in peace and safety. Moreover, we have as precious stuffs which we have brought for the prince." So the messenger returned and told these news to the king's son, who, hearing the state of the case and what the merchants had replied, said, "If they have brought stuff on my account, I will not enter the city nor depart hence till I see it shown to me." Then he mounted horse and rode to the caravan, and his Mamelukes followed him till he reached it. Thereupon the merchants rose to receive him and invoked on him divine aid and favor with countenance of glory and virtues. After which they pitched him a pavilion of red satin, embroidered with pearls and jewels, wherein they spread him a kingly divan upon a silken carpet, worked at the upper end with emeralds set in gold. There Taj Al-Muluk seated himself, whilst his white servants stood in attendance upon him, and sent to bid the merchants bring out all they had with them. Accordingly, they produced their merchandise and displayed the whole, and he viewed it and took of it what liked him, paying them the price. Then he looked about them at the caravan and remounted, and was about to ride onwards, when his glance fell on a handsome young youth in fair attire, and of comely and shapely make, with flower-white brow and moon-like face, save that his beauty was wasted, and the yellow hues had overspread his cheeks by reason of parting from those he loved. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 111th night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that Taj Al-Muluk, when he looked about at the caravan, saw a handsome youth in a neat attire, and of a shapely make, with flower-like forehead and moon-like face, save that his beauty was wasted, and yellow hues had overspread his cheeks by reason of parting from those he loved. And great was his groaning and moaning, and the tears streamed from his eyelids as he repeated these couplets: Longsome is absence, care and fear are sore, and ceaseless tears, O friend, mine eyes outpour. Yea, I farewell my heart on parting day, and heartless, hopeless, now I bid forlore. Pause, O my friend, with me, farewelling one, whose words may cure, can work my health restore. Now, when the youth ended his poetry, he wept a while, and fell down in a fainting fit, whilst Taj Al-Muluk looked at him, and wondered at his case. Then coming to himself, he started with distracted air, and versified in these couplets: Beware her glance, I rede thee, 'tis like wizard white, none can escape unscathed those eye shafts' glancing flight. In very sooth, black eyes with languorous sleeping look pierce deeper than white swords, however these may bite. Be not thy senses by her sweets of speech beguiled, whose brooding fever shall ferment in thought and spite. Soft-sided fair, did silk but press upon her skin, 'twould draw red blood from it, as thou canst sight. Chary is she of charms, twixt necks and anklets dwell, and what other scent shall cause me such delight? Then he sobbed a loud sob, and swooned away. But when Taj Al-Muluk saw him in this case, he was perplexed about his state, and went up to him, and as the youth came to his senses and saw the king standing at his head, he sprang to his feet and kissed the ground between his hands. Taj Al-Muluk asked him, Why dost thou not show us thy merchandise? And he answered, O my lord, there is naught among my stock worthy of thine august highness. Quoth the prince, Needs must show me what thou hast, and acquaint me with thy circumstance, for I see thee weeping-eyed and heavy-hearted. If thou have been oppressed, we will end thine oppression, and if thou be in debt, we will pay thy debt. For of a truth my heart burneth to see thee, since I first set eyes on thee. Then Taj Al-Muluk bade the seats be set, and they brought him a chair of ivory and ebony with a network of gold and silk, and spread him a silken rug for his feet. So he sat down on the chair, and bidding the youth seat himself on the rug, said to him, "Show me thy stock and trade." The youth merchant replied, "O my lord, do not name this to me, for my goods be unworthy of thee." Rejoined Taj Al-Muluk, "It needs must be thus," and bade some of the pages fetch the goods. So they brought them in despite of him, and when he saw them, the tears streamed from his eyes, and he wept, and he sighed, and he lamented. Sobs rose in his throat, and he repeated these couplets: "By what thine eyelids showed of cold and conquety, by what thy shape displays of lissome symmetry, but what thy liplets store of honeydew and wine, by what thy mind adorns of gracious kindly gree, to me thy sight dream visioned, oh my hope exceeds the happiest escape from horriblest injury." Then the youth opened his bales and displayed his merchandise to Taj al-Muluk in detail, piece by piece, and amongst them he brought out a gown of satin brocaded with gold worth 2,000 dinars. When he opened the gown, there fell a piece of linen from its fold. As soon as the youth merchant saw this, he caught up the piece of linen in haste, and he hid it under his thigh, and his reason wandered, and he began versifying: "When shall be healed of thee this heart that ever bides in woe? Than thee of the Pleiad stars more chance of happy meeting show, parting and banishment, and longing and pain, and low of love, procrastinating and delay, these ills my life lay low. Nor union bids me live in joy, nor parting kills my grief, nor travel draws me nearer thee, nor nearer comest thou. Of thee no justice may be had, in thee dwells not of ruth, nor gain of grace by sight of thee, nor flight from thee I know. For love of thee all goings forth and comings back are straight on me, and I am puzzled sore to know where I shall go." Taj al-Muluk wondered with great wonder at his verse, and could not comprehend the cause. But when the youth snatched up the bit of linen and placed it under his thigh, he asked him, "What is that piece of linen?" "O my lord," answered the merchant, "that has no concern with this piece." Quoth the king's son, "Show it me." And quoth the merchant, "O my lord, I refuse to show thee my goods on account of this piece of linen, for I cannot let thee look upon it." And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased saying her permitted say. Now, when it was the 112th night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the young merchant said to Taj al-Muluk, I did not refuse to show thee my goods save on this account, for I cannot let thee look upon it." Whereupon Taj al-Muluk retorted, "Perforce I must and will see it," and insisted and became angry. So the youth drew it out from under his thigh, and he wept, and he moaned, and he redoubled his sighs and groans, and repeated these verses: "Now blame him not, for blame things only irk and pain. Indeed I spake him sooth, but ne'er his ears could gain. May Allah guard my moon which riseth in the vale beside our camp from loosed robe like skyethy plain. I left him, but had love vouchsafed to leave for me some peace in life, such leave of me I ne'er had ta'en. How long he pleaded for my sake on parting morn, while down his cheeks and mine tears ran in railing rain. Allah belie me not, the garb of mine excuse, this parting rent, but I will mend that garb again. No couch is easy to my side, nor on such wise aught easeth him when all alone without me lain. Time with ill-omened hand hath wrought between us two, and made me waxing joys to wane and his to wane, and poured mere grief and woe. What time of vain had crowned the bowl he made me drink and gave for him to drain." When he ended his recitation, quoth Taj al-Muluk, I see thy conduct without consequence. Tell me, why thou weepest at the sight of this rag? When the young merchant heard speak of the piece of linen, he sighed, and he answered, "Oh, my lord, my story is strange, and my case out of range, with regard to this piece of linen, and to her for whom I bought it, and to her whom wrought on it these figures and emblems." Hereupon he spread out the piece of linen, and behold, thereon was the figure of a gazelle, wrought in silk and worked with red gold, and facing it was another gazelle, traced in silver, with a neck ring of red gold, and 3 bugles of chrysolite upon the ring. When Taj Al-Muluk saw the beauty of these figures, he exclaimed, "Glory be to Allah, who teacheth man that which he knoweth not." And his heart yearned to hear the youth's story. So he said to him, "Tell me the story with her who owned these gazelles." Replied the youth man, "Hear, O my lord, the tale of Aziz and Azizah. My father was a wealthy merchant, and Allah had vouchsafed him no child than myself. But I had a cousin, Azizah, daughter of my paternal uncle, and we twain were brought up in one house. For her father was dead, and before his death he had agreed with my father that I should marry her. So when I reached man's estates, and she reached womanhood, they did not separate her from me, or me from her, till at last my father spoke to my mother and said, 'This very year we will draw up the contract of marriage between Aziz and Azizah.' So, having agreed upon this, he betook himself to preparing provisions for the wedding feast. Still, we ceased not to sleep on the same carpet, knowing not of the case, albeit she was more thoughtful, more intelligent, and more quick-witted than I. Now, my father had an end of his preparations, and naught remained for him but to write out the contract, and for me but to consummate the marriage with my cousin. He appointed the wedding for a certain Friday after public prayers, and going round to his intimates among the merchants and others, he acquainted them with that, whilst my mother went forth and invited her women friend, and summoned her kith and kin. When Friday came, they cleaned the saloon, and prepared for their guests, and washed the marble floor, and they spread tapestries about our house, and set out thereon with what was needful, after they had hung its walls with cloth of gold. Now the folk had agreed to come over after the Friday prayers. So my father went out and bade them make sweetmeats and sugar dishes, and they remained nothing to do but to draw up the contract. Then my mother sent me to the bath, and sent after me a suit of new clothes of the richest, and when I came out of the hammam, I donned those habits, which were so perfumed that as I went along there exhaled from them a delicious fragrance scenting the wayside. I had designed to repair to the cathedral mosque, when I bethought me of one of my friends, and returned in quest of him, that he might be present at the writing of the contract. And quoth I to myself, "This matter will occupy me till the time of congregational prayer." So I went on, and I entered by a by-street which I had never before entered, perspiring profusely from the effects of the bath and the new clothes on my body, and the sweat streamed down, whilst the scents of my dress were wafted abroad. I therefore sat me at the upper end of the street, resting on a stone bench, after spreading under me an embroidered kerchief I had with me. The heat oppressed me more and more, making my forehead perspire, and the drops trickled along my cheeks. But I could not wipe my face with my kerchief, because it was dispread under me. I was about to take the skirt of my robe and wipe my cheeks, when unexpectedly there fell on me from above a white kerchief, softer to the touch than the morning breeze, and pleasanter to the sight than healing to the disease. I hent it in hand, and raised my head to see whence it had fallen, when my eyes met the eyes of the lady who owned these gazelles. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased saying her permitted say. Now, when it was the 113th night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious King, that the youth continued to Taj Al-Muluk. So I raised my head to see whence this kerchief had fallen, when my eyes met those of the lady who owned these gazelles. And lo, she was looking out of a wicket in a lattice of brass, and never saw my eyes a fairer than she. And in fine, my tongue faileth to describe her beauty. When she caught sight of me looking at her, she put her forefinger into her mouth, then joined her middle finger and her witness finger, and laid them on her bosom between her breasts, after which she drew in her head and closed the wicket shutter, and went her way. Thereupon fire broke out in and was heaped upon my heart, and greater grew my smart. The one sight cost me 1,000 sighs, and I abode perplexed, for that I had heard no word by her spoken, nor understood the meaning of her token. I looked at the window a second time, but found it shut, and waited patiently till sundown, but sensed no sound and saw no one in view. So when I despaired of seeing her again, I rose from my place, and taking up the handkerchief, opened it, when there breathed from it scent of musk, which caused me so great delight, I became as one in paradise. Then I spread it before me, and out dropped from it a delicate little scroll, whereupon I opened the paper, which was perfumed with a delicious perfume, and therein were writ these couplets. I sent to him a scroll that bore my plaint of love, writ in fine, delicate hand, for writing proves man's skill. Then quoth to me my friend, why is thy writing thus, so fine, so thin drawn, 'tis to read unsuitable? Quoth I, for that I am fine drawn, wasted, waxed thin, thus lovers' writ should be, for so love wills his will. And after casting my eyes on the beauty of the kerchief, I saw upon one of its two borders the following couplets, worked in with a needle. His cheeks down writhe, oh, fair fall the goodly scribe. 2 lines on table of his face, in right hand. On the wild marvel of the moon, when comes he forth, and when he bends, oh, shame to every willow wand. And on the opposite border these 2 couplets were traced. His cheek down writeth on his cheek with ambergris on pearl. 2 lines like jet on apple, lean the goodliest design. Slaughter is in these languid eyne, when glance they deal, and drunkenness is either cheek and not in any wine. When I read the poetry on the handkerchief, the flames of love darted into my heart, and yearning and pining redoubled their smart. So I took the kerchief and the scroll and went home, knowing no means to win my wish, for that I was incapable of conducting love affairs, and inexperienced in interpreting hints and tokens. Nor did I reach my home ere the night was far spent, and I found the daughter of my uncle sitting in tears. But as soon as she saw me, she wiped away the tears, and came up to me, and took off my walking dress, and asked me the reason of my absence, saying, all the folks, emirs and notables and merchants and others assembled in our house, and the Kazi and the witness were also present at the appointed time. They ate and tarried a while, sitting to await thine appearance for the writing of the contract. And when they despaired of thy presence, they dispersed and went their ways. And indeed, thy father raged with exceeding wrath by reason of this, and swore that he would not celebrate our marriage save during the coming year, for that he had spent on these festivities a great store of money. And she ended by asking, what hath befallen thee on this day, to make thee delay till now? And why hast thou allowed that to happen, which happened because of thine absence? Answered I, O daughter of mine uncle, question me not concerning what hath befallen me. Then I told her all that had passed from beginning to end, and showed her the handkerchief. She took the scroll and read what was written therein, and tears ran down her cheeks, and she repeated these cinquains. Who saith that love at first of free will came? Say him, thou liest, love be grief and game. Yet shall such game and grief entail no shame? All annals teach us one thing and the same. Good current coin, clipped coin, we may not cleep. And please, thou shalt there's pleasure in thy pain, thy fortunes playful gambols, glad and fain. or happy blessings, the unhappy bane, that joy or grieve with equal might and main, twixt phrase and antiphrase, I'll be a heap. But he, with all whose days are summer bright, whom maids air green the smiling lips delight, whom spicy breezes fan in every sight, and wins whate'er he wills that happy white-blooded coward heart should never keep. Then she asked me, what said she, and what signs made she to thee? And I answered, she uttered not a word, but put her forefinger on her mouth, and then joined it to her middle finger, laid both fingers on her bosom, and pointed to the ground. Thereupon she withdrew her head and shut the wicket, and after that I saw her no more. However, she took my heart with her, so I sat till sundown, expecting her again to look out of the window, but she did not. And when I despaired of her, I rose from my seat and came home. This is my history, and I beg thee to help me in this my sore calamity. Upon this she raised her face to me and said, O son of mine uncle, if thou soughtest my eye, I would tear it for thee from its eyelids, and perforce I cannot but aid thee to thy desire, and aid her also to her desire, for she is whelmed in passion for thee, even as thou for her. Asked I, and what is the interpretation of her signs? And Azizah answered, as for putting her fingers in her mouth, it showed that thou art to her as her soul to her body, and that she would bite in union with thee with her wisdom teeth. As for the kerchief, it betokeneth that her breath of life is bound up in thee. As for the placing her two fingers on her bosom between her breasts, its explanation is that she saith, the sight of thee may dispel my grief. For know, O my cousin, that she loveth thee, and she trusteth in thee. This is my interpretation of her signs, and could I come and go at will, I would bring thee and her together in shortest time, and curtain you both with my skirt. Hearing these words, I thanked her, continued the young merchant, for speaking thus, and said to myself, I will wait 2 days. So I abode 2 days in the house, neither going out nor coming in, neither eating nor drinking, but I laid my head on my cousin's lap, while she comforted me and said to me, be resolute and of good heart, and hope for the best. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. And so do I cease my tale for today, until it be morrow.